Male, female, pink, blue, XX, XY. All words we tend to associate with gender. Seems simple, right? But is it? From a sociological perspective, gender is a very in-depth topic, spanning much farther than just biological classification. Gender has a very large role in our society and can be connected to much more than you might think. It can differ with culture, evolve throughout time, cause political debate, and even exist solely due to the way we interact with each other. There's a lot to discuss, but let's not get ahead of ourselves. Firstly, while talking about gender, it's important to first define what exactly gender is. According to Ferris and Stein, authors of The Real World, gender refers to the physical, behavioral, and personality traits that a group considers to be normal, natural, and right for their male and female members. In simpler terms, gender can be considered to be the social aspects of masculinity, femininity, and androgyny, constructed throughout history by human interaction. A related term is gender identity, or the personal feelings one has on their own gender, shown through their gender expression in the form of clothing, hairstyle, presentation, and other social aspects. You may have also heard the term gender used in a scientific environment to refer to the biological classification we give to living things, which might make this definition a bit confusing. However, looking at things through a sociological lens, the clear differences between sex and gender can be seen. Sex refers to the classifications we give people based off their biological characteristics, male or female, such as chromosomes, hormones, and reproductive organs. These three factors are considered primary sex characteristics. Any factors that aren't related to reproduction are considered secondary sex characteristics, such as hair, weight distribution, or skeletal structure. I know, this might be a lot of information to take in, but really it boils down to this simple concept. Gender is strictly social, and sex is strictly biological. Although they may overlap, there is an important difference that can be seen between the two. One's gender identity can differ from their biological sex, or can line up with what we usually associate with masculinity or femininity. Both are perfectly reasonable. It's really up to the individual, and not everyone experiences it in the same way. Now that all the basics are out of the way, it's time to move on to how gender functions in society. Starting off with one of the most prevalent connections to gender in society, social norms are a large part of how we view gender. Norms refer to anything that is usual, typical, or standard. In reference to gender, norms are shaped by society and can govern the ways in which people act, dress, and conduct themselves. For example, think of clothing. If you were to think of someone wearing a pretty dress with sparkling jewelry and beautiful makeup, you'd likely imagine a woman. Don't worry, this isn't a gotcha, that's perfectly reasonable, as in society, dresses and jewelry are normally associated with women. Your thoughts clearly demonstrate the influence of social norms. This norm has been brought about through a long history of women wearing clothing we describe as feminine. As we are born into a society, we can learn what is normal and expected of us, and much of these expectations are connected to gender. This socialization, repeated from generation to generation, enforces these norms, and becomes a common part of society. Families can be a driving force in gender role socialization, with parents raising a child based off their sex. Maybe they decorate a little girl's room with pink furniture, or purchase truck-themed toys for a little boy. Social learning from birth due to interactions with others in school, with caregivers, or with media can further internalize these norms. Norms surrounding gender can differ based on time period, culture, or location. Aside from expressive norms like clothing or hairstyles, many norms about gender also come in the form of social duties. In many parts of the world, we live in a patriarchal society, meaning that in general, places of high social status and position are usually filled by men. Unfortunately, this norm can lead to gender inequality, where women are at a disadvantage compared to men. This inequality can be traced back to early societies, where the biological strength of men was needed in hunting and warfare, while women had the demand of bearing and nursing children. This trend even continued into the dawn of the Industrial Revolution, where the traditional nuclear family of a breadwinner father and a stay-at-home mother highly increased profit in a growing capitalist society. However, today, this norm of male privilege is no longer needed and becoming less prevalent. Most jobs require less physical strength, and the population no longer requires every family to raise children. Unfortunately, sexism, or the belief that one sex is superior to the other, still exists in many forms. Beyond sexism, connections with gender identity show that those who are transgender or identify outside of the male and female binary face increased discrimination in environments such as the workforce, schools, and in general. Many people have prejudice or predetermined thoughts about gender minorities and gender nonconforming people due to limited understanding and lack of education about such topics. Although discrimination based on gender is less prevalent than a few decades ago, movements in support of feminism and gender and sexual minorities are still going strong. They try to persuade governments to pass more laws upholding the rights of the people, as well as change social norms and better public opinion and knowledge on gender-based freedoms. Another intriguing aspect of gender is how it can differ between culture. Did you know that in South Asia, a third gender is recognized and institutionalized in society? Hijras are one such example of how different cultures view gender. Going back to social norms, the ways in which clothes are gendered can contrast greatly around the world. For example, in the States, skirts and dresses are often seen as feminine and mainly worn by women in every context from casual wear to formal attire. However, in Scotland, knee-length dress skirts, called kilts, began as men's clothing in Gaelic origin, were donned by men into battle, and still exist as a masculine piece of clothing in modern Scottish culture. Furthermore, deviating against gendered clothing and culture to spread a message of defiance against gender norms could be seen in Kurt Cobain's tendency to wear skirts and dresses while performing. From a highly sociological perspective, clothing and other aspects of gender, and even gender as a whole, is mainly just a social construct, formed only around the basis of what we collectively as a society deem to be normal. This idea connects perfectly with the concept of symbolic interactionism, or the approach that social interaction is the driving force in defining the meaning we place behind things in concepts such as gender. Looking at the broad range of cultures found in our society, and the norms associated with each one, it can be clear that gender is almost completely constructed of the interactions and collective decisions we make both as a whole society and just individually. Overall, gender plays an important role in our society. Norms surrounding gender shape the clothes we wear, the way we display ourselves, and the way we interact with others. The vast differences in gender around the world truly show how in-depth and individual gender can be. Hopefully in the future, more people start to understand the diversity found in gender. That's all from me. I hope you found this interesting, and feel free to discuss your thoughts in the comments below. Thanks for watching.